Welcome back to Top 5.
The sun began to rise, casting a pale light over the remnants of the bishop's headquarters. Smoke still curled up from the charred debris, but the first rays of dawn pierced through, illuminating the scars left on the landscape, and on the hearts of the bishops who stood amidst the ruins. Eric, Danny, Malik, Jalen, and Keisha stood together, casting somber looks at the devastation around them. The aftermath of their fierce battle felt surreal, as if they were stuck in a nightmarish dream. Yet, though a heavy burden hung over them, the flicker of dawn symbolized a chance for a new beginning. "Look," Danny said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "If we want to rebuild, we'll need to find supplies, anything that can help us stand back up." "I saw a few places in the town over," Jalen said, pointing to the path leading away from the ruins. "We can scavenge for materials. If we hurry, we can get there before more firebenders show up." "Right," Malik replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil. "We stick together. No one goes off alone. We can't afford to miss anything." Keisha looked at Eric, eyes filled with a mixture of concern and respect. "Are you okay?" Eric could feel the weight of their gazes, and as he nodded quietly, he felt a steely resolve begin to take root within him. He was still grappling with the ghosts of his past, but he couldn't let that hold him back. "Let's get moving. We won't let anything stop us." The journey through the remnants of their world was bittersweet. Each step felt heavy with remembrance, memories of laughter, camaraderie, and fleeting moments of joy seemed to intertwine with the stark reality of destruction, like vine clinging to a shattered wall. As the team navigated through the rubble, Eric felt something shift within him, an undercurrent of pain and rage struggling for release. He needed to channel it, not just for himself but for his friends, for their new beginning. "Why do you think they came for us?" Danny asked as they moved cautiously through the twisted wreckage of a nearby building. "Because we showed them we could stand up to them," Malik answered. "They can't have that. We'll be a threat to their power if we keep fighting." Jalen glanced at Eric, whose expression was a mix of anger and sadness. "And we can't back down now. If they come looking for us again, we'll be ready." There was a tentative agreement among them, an unspoken promise that silence would no longer be the answer. They would not play the victims anymore. As they entered what remained of a local supply store, the interior was dark, items strewn about in chaos. Dust hung in the air, catching the muted sunlight filtering through broken windows. "Search for anything usable, wood, nails, tools," Danny instructed, taking a step deeper inside. The sound of shifting debris and whispered conversations filled the air as they fanned out. Eric's attention was drawn to a warped piece of metal sticking out from beneath some rubble. With a grunt, he pried it free, revealing a rusted but serviceable crowbar. As he held it up, a sense of purpose surged through him. "Hey, guys," he called out, excitement igniting his voice. "I found something." "Great. We'll need whatever we can get," Malik replied, grinning as he unearthed several planks of wood. Slowly, they began to gather what they could, a mix of tools and debris that could be transformed into something functional. But as they worked, a distant sound shattered the fragile calm, a low rumble that echoed ominously through the air. "What was that?" Keisha asked, her brow furrowing. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound friendly," Jalen warned, his voice rising in concern. Eric felt a familiar sense of unease wash over him. "We need to leave, now." But just as they began to move, the ground shook violently. Cracks opened in the earth, sending debris cascading from above. Shadows loomed, spurred by the rising rumble of flames that twisted their way through the horizon. And then they came, figures flickering in and out of visibility, a terrifying wave of firebenders moving towards them with a singular focus on Eric and his friends. Among them was Kale, slowly recovering and holding an air of resolve, burning with rage as he marched forward. "You're not getting away so easily this time," he shouted, flames igniting in his palm, radiating a heat that sent shockwaves through the air. "Back to back!" Danny yelled, her voice piercing through the chaos. The bishops quickly formed a circle, standing firm against the oncoming threat. "I'll handle Kale," Eric said, feeling the fire inside him ignite in response to the danger. "You guys focus on the others. We can't let them surround us." I'm not letting you go out there alone. Malik countered fiercely, but he could see the determination in Eric's eyes. I can do this, Eric insisted, pushing forward. Trust me. I need to put an end to this. Danny looked at Malik and Jalen, weighing options in her mind before addressing the group. We need to split up their forces. If we can separate them, we can handle Kale while the others deal with the rest. All right, Malik said, the fire of determination igniting in his heart. We're with you, Eric. Just be careful. As the group sprung into action, chaos erupted. Malik conjured barriers to deflect incoming flames, while Jalen unleashed powerful shock waves that slammed into the advancing firebenders, sending a few sprawling backward. Danny darted from side to side, launching debris to incapacitate any attacker that dared come too close. Eric squared off against Kale, whose eyes burned with a mix of fury and disbelief. You think you can stop me after everything I've lost? You're a fool. I may have lost, but I won't lose again, Eric replied, anger bubbling within him. He channeled the blue flames that coursed through his veins, igniting them with resolved clarity. With a furious battle cry, Eric lunged forward, unleashing a torrent of blue flames aimed directly at Kale. The flames struck fiercely, illuminating the darkened battleground, but Kale barely dodged, twisting his body away as he retaliated with fiery blasts of his own. Flames clashed in the air, sending sparks flying, and each boy was a force of nature, refusing to back down. The others fought valiantly, covering Eric's battle. Jalen sent shockwaves that knocked several attackers off balance, while Malik formed barriers to absorb the fireballs aimed at him. Danny's strategy combined deft agility with powerful debris, keeping their attackers at bay. Kale and Eric continued to dance dangerously, each one more determined than the last. With every strike, they pushed each other to the limits, fire simply a language of retaliation between them. Your friends are losing. Kale taunted, attempting to sway Eric's focus. You will witness their fall before me. Eric saw out of the corner of his eye Malik being momentarily pulled down by an unseen firebender. No, he yelled, turning to help but having to duck an incoming fireball from Kale instead. No. Get away from him. Eric roared, the heat inside him surging. Seizing the moment of distraction, Eric flashed a blazing blue fireball right back at Kale, the intensity shaking the ground beneath them. With a growl, Kale retaliated with a streaming wave of fire, leading them both into the center of a charged battle. The fight escalated. The air cackled with energy as the bishops fought furiously. Malik conjured a sweeping barrier, hoping to buy time for Jalen to blast a few attackers away, while Danny leaped forward with agility only she possessed, knocking another enemy down in a split-second maneuver. Through it all, Keisha stood at the edge of the battle, drawing on her recovering powers, willing her energy to her friends. Come on, come back to me, come on. You have to keep fighting. The strength of their bond resonated even in the chaos. Eric's voice, straining against the clash of elemental fury, rose above the fray. Stay together. We win this as one. But as they focused on their enemies, a sudden glow emanated from behind. Shadows twisted into familiar forms, Eric's remaining family members, drawn by the blood they shared and fueled by the desire to bring revenge for their fallen. They walked slowly through the smoke, their eyes glowing with anger, calling forth flames that twisted around their limbs. The fight became increasingly frantic as Eric's family closed in around him. He stood at the center, feeling the weight of two worlds crashing down, the love he had for his family and the responsibility to protect his new one. Eric. Focus. Danny shouted as she spun toward him, deflecting an incoming attack. But Eric found himself torn, the flames of his past beckoned him, tempered by the friends who had stood by him. No. You won't take me, he roared, roaring back powerful blue flames, channeling everything he could muster into a radiant shield that deflected his bloodline's flames. The remaining bishops rallied behind him, weaving a protective barrier that formed a protective shell. Together, they concentrated their powers, merging their energies into a unified front against Eric's family. Feel our strength. We are the bishops. Malik called out, his voice strong against the raging inferno. As the flames surged, Eric felt his grief transform into purpose. Their bond acted as a tether, connecting him to Danny, Jalen, Malik, and Keisha. The fire that once felt like a burden now became a source of power as their energies merged. Together, the bishops formed a glowing barrier with radiant energy, a flickering shield of blue and gold encircling Eric. They stood side by side, the shadows of their past intertwining with the flames of the present. In that moment, they became more than just friends, they became a family united in purpose. "Let's end this," Eric shouted, his voice resounding with defiance. The collective power of the bishops surged through him, igniting his essence. He could feel their spirits with him, urging him forward. Kale, recognizing the layered strength they had formed, sneered and called upon his family members, igniting their flames. "Do you truly think you can stand against us? We share blood, Eric. You cannot escape your lineage." In a blinding flash, Eric released a wave of blue flames, propelling the barrier forward like a shockwave. It clashed violently against the corruptive flames of his family, energy pulsating between them in a cacophony of light and fury. The raw force sent shockwaves through the field, causing both sides to stagger. Eric felt the weight of his emotions, the love, the pain, the rage, all coalescing into a singular entity of power. "Now. Together." Danny shouted, rallying them as they pushed forward with all their might. But as they advanced, Kale and his allies retaliated with a conflagration so fierce that it threatened to engulf everything. The flames roared hungrily as they clashed against the barrier, illuminating the darkened battlefield in shades of orange and blue. In the chaos, Malik noticed a firebender slipping through their defensive line towards Keisha, whose focus was consumed by battening down the fort with their combined energy. "Keisha, look out!" Malik yelled, instinctively positioning himself between her and the advancing enemy. But before he could reach her, the attacker unleashed a powerful wave of fire, catching Malik by surprise. "Malik!" Eric cried, feeling the surge of panic swell within him. In a moment that felt like an eternity, Malik pushed Keisha aside just as the flames lashed out. The intense heat scorched his arm and the right side of his body. He stumbled, desperately trying to regain his footing, fear clawing at him. "Stay back. I'll protect you," he shouted. "Malik, no." Keisha cried out, racing forward despite her injuries. But the firebender wasn't finished. Eyes narrow with fury, he encroached on the fallen Malik. In an instant, he hurled a blast of flames. Time slowed for Eric. He felt the fraying thread of everything they had built flicker dangerously, and then it snapped. "No." Eric's scream broke through the maelstrom as he thrust his hand forward, a desperate bid to conjure every ounce of strength within him. But even as he unleashed a wave of blue flames, it wasn't enough. Malik threw up a barrier, a final act of courage that would cost him dearly. With a blinding flash, the malicious flames engulfed the barrier, and the explosion knocked everyone back. In the ensuing chaos, Eric felt a force lift him off his feet, and all he could hear was the final, echoing cry of his friend. "Stay safe, my family." Malik's voice rang clear, unwavering, amidst the chaos, even as the flames swallowed him whole. The world froze as Eric watched Malik sacrifice himself, his silhouette disappearing within a storm of fire. He could taste the ash in the air and felt the sharp pang of lost claw at his heart. "No." Danny's voice shattered the haze. She rushed forward to where Malik had been just moments before. Flames roared around them, but her heart drove her through the smoke. "Malik! Malik!" she cried, desperation threading through her voice. As the dust began to settle, a palpable silence engulfed the battlefield. The firebenders hesitated, their eyes now reflecting a mixture of shock and uncertainty. Eric fell to his knees, grief racking his body. The fire within him dimmed, replaced by a hollow ache where Malik had once stood strong. The realization sunk in, they had lost one of their own, not just a fighter but a friend, a brother. He had given everything to save them. "Malik!" Keisha screamed, her voice cracking as despair washed over her. "Get away from here. Run!" Eric shouted, rallying his emotions against the encroaching darkness, fury and grief ignited within him. The firebenders were closing in, and he knew they needed to regroup, but he couldn't move. Danny knelt beside him, her hands shaking as she reached for Malik's last traces. "We can't let his sacrifice be in vain. We need to keep fighting." Jalen, feeling the same crushing sorrow, rose to his feet, determination etched into every feature. "We owe it to Malik. We won't let their flames consume us." With each shout and scream, memories of Malik surged through Eric, a siren call of friendship and unbreakable bonds. They had trained together, laughed together, fought through hell and back. He couldn't let it end like this. Fueled by their loss, Eric stood fiercely, his heart ignited with resolve. "You will pay for this. I swear it." His blue flames roared back to life, fierce and wild, igniting the battlefield around him. The remaining bishops rallied together once more, drawing strength from Malak's legacy. Keisha channeled healing energy, creating a shield that enveloped them all, reinforcing their unity and the furious grief that burned white-hot in the air. Kale, seeing their fiery determination rise from the ashes of their grief, hesitated but then smirked. "You think a little sacrifice can stop us? How naive. Maybe you don't understand what it means to care for others." Jalen shouted, stepping beside Eric, his own energy surging. "To fight to the death for your family, your friends. Let this be the last time you think you can threaten us." Danny added, her voice rising above the din, her eyes alight with purpose. "This is for Malak." Eric roared, a cacophony of blue flames surging forth, no longer just a weapon but a tribute to their fallen friend. Together, the bishops unleashed a final, united wave of energy towards Kale and his family. The culmination of their bond fed Eric's flames, turning the battlefield into a blazing inferno, illuminating the darkness that had threatened to consume them. As the energy collided against the remaining firebenders, it unleashed a shockwave of power and emotion. The barriers that had once separated them shattered, replaced by the unity forged through loss and love. Kale's flames faltered, the sheer force of Eric's powers colliding against the remnants of Kale's own fire with magnificent ferocity. The power of the bishops emanated like a beacon, drowning out the hatred that had fed Kale's fury. In that moment, time seemed to stretch as the two forces crashed, blue flames representing friendship and sacrifice against the savage fire of pure lineage and vengeance. Then, the world snapped back into focus. Eric felt time slow as he realized the finality that approached. With one last surge of strength, he pushed forward, the fire intertwining with his essence as he thrust the energy directly at Kale. And in that instant, the explosion of energy burst forth, consuming everything in its path, engulfing both sides in the wake of an overwhelming wave of light. The last thing Eric saw as the flames and light wrapped around him was the echoes of laughter, reminders of the bond they'd shared, and Malak's fierce determination fueling his very soul. As everything faded to darkness, they knew they had become an indelible part of each other's stories, their legacy entwined for eternity. In the aftermath, the battlefield lay silent, the echoes of the conflict fading into a haunting yet serene calm. The remnants of firebenders tumbled with the howling winds, their power snuffed out by the burning hearts of the bishops. Eric awoke some moments later, his body aching but alive. Shimmers of blue flickered around him as he lifted his head, disoriented yet seeking his friends. "Danny. Jalen. Keisha," he called, his voice hoarse but filled with hope. Slowly, he spotted his friends, battered but alive, emerging from the shadows. Their eyes reflected the pain and grief they had just endured, but there was also a new strength shining through. They had harnessed their grief into a powerful bond. As they came together, Danny collapsed into Eric's arms, tears streaming down her face. "He's gone," she sobbed, heart-wrenching emotion spilling over. "I know," Eric replied softly, holding her tight as they faced the painful reality. "He died for us. He died for something greater than himself." Jalen stepped forward, still shaken but resolute. "We owe it to him to carry on. We have to be stronger, we have to rebuild." "And we will," Eric said, determination etching itself into his features. "For Malak." Keisha knelt amidst the debris, her breath uneven as she recalled the moments they had lost. "We must honor his memory. We need to find a way to make this place safe again. Not just for us, but for everyone." With the sun rising higher, they stood together, united by their loss but resolute in their purpose. They would rebuild, both their home and their hearts, and the spirit of Malak would guide them as they forged their path forward. As the dawn's light broke fully over the horizon, the ashes lifted, and from the destruction, the true essence of the bishops emerged stronger than ever. They would rise from the ashes, not just as guardians of their realm, but as a family, ready to face whatever adversities lay ahead. For Malak. For each other. And for a brighter future.